everyone out there in Mandolin land, Mike Heading here. We're back with Classic Bluegrass this week. We're going to talk about cross-picking, and specifically McReynolds style cross-picking. So you may have heard the term cross-picking before. It gets used a lot in guitar, and a lot of times it just means crossing the strings, sometimes quickly with your pick. But what Jesse McReynolds did is he developed a down, up, up pick technique that was meant to mimic a banjo roll. So this is a really cool technique, used a lot in classic bluegrass, and it has a certain sound that's very hard to replicate unless you do this style of picking. I'm going to break down the right hand picking technique, some of the picking patterns you can work on with your right hand, and then show you how to add your left hand to, through some different chord inversions, how to play in different keys and kind of building on it once you got the basic pick technique down. This is definitely not a beginner lesson, so I'm going to assume that you know a lot of the basic bluegrass double stops. I don't have enough time in this lesson to break down all the different chord positions we're going to use, so I'm going to kind of assume that you know those going into this lesson. You can check out a lesson I did, Bluegrass Double Stops, if you want a lot of the positions we're going to use in this lesson. And one more thing, I'd just like to also give a special shout out to Jesse McReynolds, a huge mandolin hero of mine, and I think it's so cool that he developed this new style, himself. You have to think about it in context. When he came about, everyone wanted to play like Bill Monroe, the father of bluegrass, and playing like Bill Monroe was basically the thing to do. And Jesse said, no, I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to develop my own style. I'm going to kind of chart my own path. I think that is so cool that he did that. And he took that step and he really pushed the mandolin into a new territory, because this doesn't sound anything like Monroe style mandolin, and that's what's so cool about it. So a special shout out to Jesse, one of my mandolin heroes, and here is McReynolds style bluegrass cross picking. All right, let's start breaking down this McReynolds style cross picking lesson. So first, let's focus on the right hand and getting the basic cross picking patterns down, and then I'll show you how to add some left hand moves that'll make it more interesting. But let's just start with our left hand, just so we get a little bit of a chord. We're going to do our 2-finger G double stop. So I've got my third finger on the 5th fret of the D string, and my first finger on the 2nd fret of the A string. So just a classic bluegrass 2-finger double stop. And there's two picking patterns that McReynolds would use a lot. And one is kind of based off the forward roll of banjo playing, so Scruggs style banjo playing. And the other one is kind of mimics the alternating thumb roll. So again, this cross-picking style kind of mimics playing banjo. And you don't have to know how to play banjo to do this style, but I'll kind of break it down and just know that it's kind of banjo influenced. So we're going to start with a downstroke on the D string. And this is really important. I'd follow the pick directions in the tab. So the staple-looking symbols are downs, the V-looking symbols are ups. Because in this cross-picking style, at least in Jesse McReynolds style cross-picking, we're going to do down, up, up. And there's other types of cross-picking where you might just do down, up, something like, which can also sound really cool. And it's a different style of cross-picking. But this McReynolds style cross-picking is very specific in how you do the picking. So we're going to do down, and then up, up. So I did down on the D string, and then up, up, so up on the E, the high E, and then up on the A, and then it would start over. So we have two of those patterns. It's a 3-note pattern. Again, it's mimicked after banjo, like a thumb, index, middle pattern. So we have a group of 3 notes. And then we need 2 notes at the end. So we're going to do down, up. So D string, A string. And then it would start over. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So remember, it's 2 groups of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then we have 8 eighth notes per measure. So if we have 2 groups of 3, that's 6 eighth notes. So we need 2 more. So we're going to do down, up, either D string, A string, or you could also do D string, E string. So those are the 2 variations. I'll play them back to back. The only thing different about those is the last 2 notes. So again, it's still down, up, down, up, and then down, up. And I'm just changing those last two notes slightly. That's all I'm doing there. So that's the first pattern. Remember, it's based off the forward roll. A little practice you can do is now add your second finger on the third fret of the A string. That's like a C. And then back to G. And then if you do your second finger on the fourth fret of the D string, that's like a D. Just practicing, one, keeping that pattern going while I'm changing my left hand, which is tricky. You need to be able to keep that pattern going while you change your left hand without your right hand getting thrown off. And that's tricky, and that's what we're practicing there. So that's the basic pattern. So I think of that kind of as the forward roll pattern. And again, since this is kind of an intermediate lesson, I'm going to assume that you know some of the basic bluegrass double stops, like I said in the intro. So you could go up here and try it in like third position. That's also good left hand practice. You have to angle your hand properly so you can get all those notes to ring out. One you could try is like sliding up from 2 and 5 to 5 and 9. So it'd be shifting from first position to third position, so you could do it with a slide. You got this D right here. So that's another D chord you can use. Okay, but before we start breaking down the other positions, let me show you one more kind of cross-picking pattern that he would use a lot. And this one is kind of a 4-note pattern. So this one, let's go back to our classic G double stop, 5 and 2. We're going to do up on the A string, down on the D, up on the A again, and then down. So we have 4 notes there. And then we're going to do up on the E, up on the A, down on the D string, and then up on the E. So if you do that, you can loop it. So you have up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Again, we're throwing all of our classic pick direction rules out the window for this style. So we're going to do that's a great one to kind of highlight notes on the A string, right? So if we were up here, whereas the other roll we were doing kind of more highlights notes on the D string. See how you could put them together? Let's try that. So we're going to do the forward roll pattern and then go into the other one. So with this, with the 4-note pattern, I usually like to end it with the E string because then you can start it over, then you can loop it. Like that. So now you've got 2 basic picking patterns that you can do. One to highlight notes on the D string, one to highlight notes on the A string. And you can also do it on the lower strings as well. But McReynolds would kind of mostly do it on the middle strings. I think it sounds a little bit better on the middle strings. You can do it on the lower strings as well, but so that's something you can practice. So now that we've got the basic right hand moves down, let's practice adding some more left hand moves, and we'll practice changing the key so we can play this cross picking style in different keys. But remember, I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you intentionally. You know, getting the picking pattern down might take a little bit of time, and I fully expect that. So digest all this stuff slowly, okay? I don't expect you to get all this right away. But one thing I like to do is basically create a basic chord progression, like a G, C, G, D, and then figure out, you know, again, you can kind of use different positions to play those chords. So let's practice doing that shift from first to third position again. So we have G, then I'm going to slide up, and we could do like a C right up here, G, D, we got a G way up here if we do 12 and 10 way up there, C, G, D, G. You can throw like a little ending lick or something. But again, what we're really just practicing is our positions there. Another one that's kind of cool is if you go up and do this G, and then if you take off your second finger and add your first finger on the, what is that, 8th fret, that's like a G7. That leads nicely into a C, so you could do something like, I also like doing those little hammer-ons, can sound really cool. I'm just using those same two picking patterns that we already practiced. Okay, so that's some basics in G. And again, I'm just using my Bluegrass double stops. Check out that lesson I did, Bluegrass double stops. If you want a lot of these positions, they'll all work. Another one that it works good in is like the key of A. So that'd be like A. Again, I'm just using those same shapes. And that's where really knowing your shapes in this style is really important. And this is, again, an intermediate lesson like I said in the intro. So if you don't know all these shapes, this would be good practice before you get into the picking. But I'm just using those same Bluegrass double stop shapes. It also works good in the key of E, something like... Same shapes, remember, I'm just using that G double stop shape. Now I'm just moved it down to E. Another little cool lick you can do is that's a little modified roll there. I'm doing. So what we did there is we took, instead of doing the two notes at the end, we did down, up, and then down, up, up, down, up, down, up. So that can give you stuff like... Part of what I'm doing there is just experimenting and getting familiar with the style and just kind of seeing what I can come up with. So I could do that same style of lick in D. You know, I'm really just trying to figure out how I can grab different melody notes on different strings. So one more picking pattern I do that's a little bit more advanced, but it's based off this 4-note pattern. But we're going to start it on the higher strings. So what did I do there? I did up, down, up, down, up, up, down, up. That's probably easier to play than explain. But you can get some cool sounding stuff when you do that picking pattern, because now you can get the high E string and add melody notes way up there. like something like that, like a little ending like in G. So let's practice a couple more ideas. Let's do it in E again. That's a cool E7 you could use right there. And then A, E, B, E, I really like those hammer-ons. I think that could sound really good. So I think this cross-picking, it works best with like kind of major sounding chords. I mean, you can add like a 6 minor if you want to, but I think kind of sticking with the major 1, 4, and 5 chords really sounds best. All right, lastly, we've got the basic left hand moves down. We've got some of the basic right hand picking patterns down. Let's look at applying this bluegrass cross-picking idea to a basic melody. And one thing we're gonna have to do is think more horizontally rather than vertically, right? We're going to need to take advantage of playing the melody on the same string so we can move around and get those 3-string harmonies, right? If we played the melody vertically this way, we would really lose the ability to play those 3-string cross-picking ideas, right? So let's take a basic melody like Will the Circle Be Unbroken. So if we're going to play it again horizontally, something like that, right? That'd be kind of a basic way to play it. So let's try that, adding some cross picking. So remember, it doesn't have to be note for note 100% melody. It's kind of similar to Scruggs style banjo, right? Where you're approximating the melody and fitting those melodies into kind of the picking patterns that we've been doing. So, you know, something like... So it's not note for note melody, you know, like you'd play it, you know, in kind of more like a bluegrass flat picking style, right? So we're kind of hinting at the melody. So remember, you're not always going to be able to get all the notes of the melody, but just kind of hint at it. And then I do a little walk up right here. So I'm just going back into my picking there. That's another thing you can do. So maybe after I go... And then the D would be... something like that. And again, just get started, get familiar with playing a basic melody. You're not going to maybe get it note for note exactly how you want it right away. Again, you have to kind of figure out how to work that melody into the picking pattern. Works better on slower or mid-tempo songs. Another one that might sound good would be like Banks the Ohio might sound cool too, something like... experimenting with this style, you're going to have to kind of figure out how to work it into the melody and figure out what right-hand picking patterns you're going to have to do to make it work out. So those are a couple of easy songs in G. You could do the same kind of song in A, maybe something like 9-Pound Hammer or something could sound cool. Just use these as a basis for experimentation. And the keys that I think this works best in are G, A, E, D, or C. Kind of some of the safer keys. This doesn't work in every key quite as good just because of the nature of the mandolin. Like, it doesn't really work that well in B flat because you get that weird E note ringing on top, which doesn't really sound that good with a B flat. It's also a little trickier to do it in F, just because, again, the way the notes work out. So, you know, and some of those weirder keys, A flat. You know, I would kind of stick with this. Again, cross-picking, at least McReynolds style, it doesn't work on every song. It doesn't work at every speed, too. You're definitely going to reach a speed limit. But I think like a mid-tempo song in the key of G, E, or A, some of that cross-picking can sound really, really cool. It just fills it up. It fills up the sound so much, and it's so much different than other stuff you might be hearing. So, again, I think digest this stuff slowly, but this could be kind of a new avenue for you to explore and just try a little bit of these different picking patterns, and also just a good excuse to get more used to your double stops and using the same double stops in different situations, right? So, for example, this E7 double stop, we're also using over a G chord, you know, and that's the third position, G chord double stop. So there's a lot of kind of multiple uses of these double stops you can use once you figure out the harmonies behind it, and that's really good practice. And just trust your ear. And also what we're working on, like I said lastly, is just getting our two hands to operate independently, so hopefully your right hand can just keep that picking pattern going while your left hand kind of explores around a little bit. All right, hopefully that gives you a little bit of stuff to try. All right, good luck.